Today I'm at Stewart Title and I'm just waiting for something incredible for you.
Hi, where's Ronzi? Stewart Title with Brianna. And we are here talking today about title insurance, escrow, title, escrow officers. What is the role of an escrow officer? What do they do and why are they important? So we'll get right into it and I'm gonna ask Brianna a question. Most people think that real estate agents handle everything. What is the role of the title and escrow company in a transaction?
Yeah. Well, with Stewart Title, my role is to get all information, take the instruction, which is the contract, and make sure that I pull everything together, wrangle all parties, so buyer, seller, real estate agents, as well as lender and third parties, to collate all the information, put it on a statement, and make sure everybody gets paid. So we collect all the money, we pay out all the money, and we also take all the instructions and put it all together. So we're like data collectors.
Yes, so the title company is like the cash register.
Yeah.
Everything's being accounted for. If there's $5 that is not accounted for or $5 left on the table, Brianna's got to figure out who's that $5 going to, because there shouldn't be any money left over. So,
well, and to add on to it, I'm not just doing all that. On the tail end, I'm working with the title department to make sure that the title policy can be issued clear, so that our title commitment is free of any liens and encumbrances.
And a lien is basically someone saying, before you sell this property, you owe me some money.
Yep.
So it's part of Brianna's job to research that, make sure that it's in fact a true lien, that it wasn't dissolved or that it didn't get paid and just didn't get updated and on the record or something, but to actually make sure that what's on the record is facts. So, and Brianna also works with loan officers, underwriters. She's communicating with the buyers and the sellers. So as a neutral party, she is making sure that there is no bias, that she's not favoring either side or either agent, but making sure that she's doing her job to protect both parties and making sure that the table is clean and clear and everybody walks away happy. Okay. Why is the escrow company considered a neutral party?
We're neutral because we're the instruction takers, and because we are dealing with a large asset from the seller and the buyer's asset, we need to make sure that all the information collected is done so in a neutral manner. We can't favor the buyer or the seller or any other party because of those instructions. We have to follow the instructions to a T, and if there's something that's not clear from the purchase contract, which is the instructions that we pull, then we will request an amendment to the contract in the form of either an addendum or something to clarify. So because of
neutral party, make sure that you're not favoring either side and that you're doing your job and everybody walks away from the table happy. The seller gets paid, the buyers get the house, the buyers don't find out about some lien 10 years later when they're trying to sell the house. Now they're going to be mad. No, they're not. They're not going to be mad because Brianna did her job to make sure that the title was clear and that the person who was selling the house is in fact the person who is selling the house. So it's important to understand that the title company is neutral in the way that they're making sure that the transaction moves smoothly, as opposed to an attorney. In Arizona, we don't do attorneys. We don't use attorneys for transactions in real estate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Next question. At what point in the transaction does the escrow officer become involved, and what would be your first responsibilities?
So
technically you just kind of answered that question, because you said you're going to pull title reports, you're going to contact the seller, contact the buyer, make sure that everything on the report is what it should be. Go through the contract, make sure that we understand who's getting paid what, who's paying off what the net sheet is.
Exactly.
Everything is just basically adding, you're just checking everything.
I'm pulling it together, I'm auditing my own files, We get involved right as the contract's executed. So the first day that I receive the contract, I'll open escrow. I'll order my title officer to generate that title commitment or title report, and that can take 3 to 5 days to obtain. But in the background, I'm ordering the HOA disclosures, I'm ordering the mortgage payoff statements if there's one for the seller. I'm requesting welcome packages. Typically, this is all done within the first day, 2 days. Welcome packages will go out DocuSign or electronically to the buyer and seller. If they don't have email, we'll courier it to them, FedEx it to them. We'll make sure that we can gather the information we need. Some of it is sensitive information, social security numbers or date of birth or personal loan information. And we're also, first order of business is we've got to get that earnest deposit, because that's part of the contract. And and it's their instruction we need to take is we have to have that good faith deposit. It's not something that can be 7, 10, 15 days later. Hey, did you ever get that earnest money? Oh no, I didn't. Because I'll tell you now, if I don't get it within 2 business days, I'm gonna be calling the real estate agent and I'm gonna say, hey,
we don't have it. We don't have the earnest money. We don't have the earnest money.
Let's do a 3-way phone call with your client and see what's going on. If they can't wire it, let's find a solution. If they did wire it and they accidentally sent it as an ACH transfer, let's find a solution for that too.
Okay.
So, yeah, and then once that title report comes in, I'm working through each item. There's gonna be page 1, or I guess it's a couple pages in, it shows who the current owner is. Is that who's on the contract? If the contract says something otherwise, then I need to question it. Who's the buyer? Are they married? Are they unmarried? You know, is there a current mortgage? Is there an HOA? Does the contract show that there's an HOA? Do I have the HOA addendum? So I'm going through each of these items and making sure that I'm entering in all of the data that I have from the contract, which is my instructions to follow. And to be fair, I have to enter it exactly as it says. So if the buyer comes to me and doesn't understand why they're paying prepaid HOA dues, I can reference back to that addendum.
And be able to explain that to them clearly so they understand why.
Absolutely.
Just as a quick note, opening escrow basically means opening the file, opening up the account, opening up the relationship for the parties. It's opening the transaction that's about to happen is what opening escrow is. On the title report, what are some items that are important that we should be looking at? Preliminary title report, like what are some things that when you are sending this information, because even as an agent I get it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some things that buyers, sellers, agents should be really paying attention to once they receive that email from you and those documents?
So with Stewart Title, we underwrite our own policies, but I know at least for my division, we have a handy hyperlink in our title report. Every single item in the exceptions page are really good information for this buyer to look at. It'll show if there's easements, and they can click on the document and it'll lead them to the recorded easement, showing where it's at on the property. If there's a right of way, then it'll show that right of way and where they need to make sure that they don't block. It'll also show the CC&Rs for the HOA. So this is going to be on the exceptions where you can click on those requirements, restrictions, covenants for that HOA or for the city to show what they can and cannot have on their property. So if they have an RV and they're purchasing a property where there's an RV gate and the CC&Rs say nothing over this height, that's where they can look. HOA Arizona can take up to 10 business days to obtain disclosures and CC&Rs from the association. So we send out that title report that 99% of the time has all of those hyperlinks to it if they're current and recorded of record. And the client can go in and look during their bids or inspection time. So, and then the sellers, whenever there's something on the report, I go to the sellers on the requirements portion and I request them to send me the information for their current mortgage. Here's where it's referenced. Or if they have a tax lien, then I go to them and request the information so that I can clear that tax lien and so forth.
So Brianna's, one of her main jobs is to make sure that if there's something on the title as a buyer that you know you're not responsible for, that you do not want to have to pay for because it wasn't yours, it was the previous owner's, she's going to make sure that it's cleared. It's been removed. She's reaching out to the vendor or the
lender
or whoever it is that's saying that they're owed this money.
I might even reach out to the prior title company.
Okay.
Because if the current owner has a title policy that was done through another different title company, they purchased it, and let's say that there's a lien from a prior owner, then at that point I need to go to that title company and see if it was paid, why it wasn't released, and they need to do their due diligence to protect that client, and then they can send me that information. So sometimes I have to reach out to other title companies.
Okay. Good to know. What would happen if there were no title companies?
Well, if there wasn't any title companies, there might be a lot of things unsettled. And what I mean by that is, if buyer A goes and sells it or if a seller and a buyer are going just by themselves, I want to sell this property to you. Here's a property for $5,000. I don't have any loans on it. Here you go. I'm the owner. How do you know they're the owner? How do you know they don't have any loans? You're taking their word of mouth and trusting them without actually having facts. So that's why title insurance is so important, is because we're pulling the history of the property. We're making sure that there's no prior liens. We're making sure that you're purchasing that property and it's covered by a policy. So I mean, the main reason is because you want to make sure that that seller is in fact who they say they are, that we're doing that on our end. We're making sure that we're doing identity information, making sure that parties are protected, buyer and seller, because is this buyer really legitimate? Are the funds legitimate? Is the seller the actual owner of the property? Because if someone goes to a party and says, let me sell you this property, and they're not in fact that person who owns the property, then at that point the buyer loses out also. So I mean, it's important to have title insurance because we're the ones that actually make sure and do the verifications. We clear the property, we make sure that the buyer is purchasing and the seller is actually the seller of record getting paid.
So make sure when you're ready to come to closing and Ronzi says you're gonna meet at the title company, make sure you bring your forms of identification, because there will be a notary and there will be ID that's going to be asked for. So
yes,
we need to know who you are.
Make sure it's not expired.
Right, make sure it's not expired. All right. Again, what is the biggest misconception buyers have about escrow, if any? And sellers.
Yeah.
Because sellers, more than likely, if they purchased in Arizona, would have been to an escrow company before because they would have purchased before.
Yes.
That's why they want to sell this time, because they've got a property that they want to sell.
Yes.
So if there are any misconceptions of either side, what would you say, if any, that you could think of?
I would say that they probably don't know that they have a choice. They can go and shop around for a title and escrow team and ask for fees. They can go, they can come to Stewart Title if they wanted to reach out to me personally, ask for a fee sheet. Absolutely. I'll disclose what our fees are. Obviously, if you have a lender, I won't know what their fees are, but I can get a buyer an estimate of what our fees are. We underwrite our own policies. If the seller wants to do the same and ask for a net seller's fee sheet, I can do that for the seller. So sometimes you want to reach out and actually see if you're going to have a good communication or have that vibe or confidence that the escrow team that you're working with is competent to be able to clear items if they arise. Having that transparency and knowing who you're working with, I think, is so important. So I think that the choice is yours. Sometimes real estate agents have their preferred, but maybe they don't clash with how you work. Maybe they don't communicate the same style. And so I think it's a good idea, and I think that most people don't know that what title insurance is and why it's so important. So I know you're gonna have some links here that show it, but title insurance protects you from prior claims on the property. Most people don't know what it is and why it's so important. So, let's say someone tries to be a false impersonator. title companies will make sure that people are who they say they are. If someone tries to make claim or interest on your property, do they legitimately have any claim or interest of the property? So misconception is not knowing that you have a choice and not knowing what it is.
Absolutely. Buyers when you're buying real estate, your agent will always let you know who they have worked with, because when dealing with a real estate transaction, you want to be sure that the person who's handling the escrow can do it, that they can handle your file as well as whatever files that they have already been working on. Communication is important, knowing that your escrow officer is available to answer your phone calls, your emails, that you're not waiting 4 days for a response to your email, that they're calling you back and answering your questions. And that's just in general professional. Profession, when you're a professional and you're dealing with people, you should follow up, you should respond. You shouldn't take more than 2 days to get back to a person, especially when dealing with a transaction that's as large as these amounts are, especially in Arizona now. The prices of homes, it's like it's not $100,000 anymore for a house. So
I would be totally sad if I was going to the table to purchase and all of a sudden my money was gone.
Right.
Because of somebody not doing their due diligence.
Right.
You know?
And it's important to know that when wiring funds to your title company, that you follow their escrow instructions when it comes to wiring funds, because there's lots of fraud going on. Just
call a legitimate number. Call me 5 times. I don't care if you're at the bank and you're on the phone. If you're not sure I am who I am, call your agent. They have my contact. Verify that number. Call our corporate number. Make sure that you have the routing and account number and they're true and accurate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's really, really, really important.
Can't drill that in enough.
Oh my gosh. So we'll chop it up. Thank you for your attention today, Miss Brianna.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to Stewart Title for their time and allowing this green room opportunity for these questions that we want to be able to bring to the public and provide information and be resourceful, because buying real estate is a huge deal and we want to prepare you for it. So where's Ronzi? Stewart Title. And Brianna, do you have any closing?
I don't. I think that you covered it.
Where's Ronzi? Where's Ronzi? She's on the move.